Good evening, I'm Ronke Phillips. This is ITV News London. London's new ultra-low emission zone came into effect today, covering a quarter of the capital. More than 100,000 cars, vans and lorries are affected. Ria Chatterjee has been speaking to 3 people who still own polluting vehicles.
Sweeping policy change inevitably shifts the grains of everyday life. For some, the domino effect knocks hard. At this school for children with complex needs, the new ULEZ rules could have a lasting impact.
A lot of the children have needs on the autism spectrum, so our minibuses are vital. For many of our children, they really struggle to navigate and manage in the local community. Things like going to the shops, accessing a library, all those sorts of things are things that we have to teach our children. And for many of our families, they can't manage supporting their children in that type of environment. So it's for us to do within the curriculum. So the minibuses give us all sorts of opportunities.
Under the new rules, minibuses used for community transport don't have to pay the charge, but only for 2 years. The school has that time to raise around £60,000.
Hiya, you okay?
Time isn't on Nadia Essex's side. In fact, she already feels like too much has been wasted. Ezekiel is a so-called lockdown baby.
Really, the car is the only way we can get out of the house.
Which is important, why?
Well, I think anyone with a toddler will know that it's important to get out of the house. Not just for mental health purposes, but for developmental purposes. I mean, he was born a week before lockdown, so we missed out on pretty much the first 18 months. We had no baby groups, no mum groups, no classes, nothing, literally nothing. We were completely isolated.
Nadia has to send her car back to the dealership and will borrow her sister's to get out and about.
Here's that side elevating roof.
Meanwhile, Danny Haley has committed to a trade-off that's financially and emotionally costly.
This vehicle is no longer compliant. I was doing some sums before this. If I were to use this vehicle, say 5 times a week, usually I don't, but say that would cost me more than £3,000 a year just to go off to the shops.
At 73, he's using his life savings to buy a new camper van.
There's nothing to fall back on, really. I mean, like I said to you, I'm retired now.
Everyone we spoke to recognises the long-term wider importance of cleaner air. They also feel the particular personal burden of change. Ria Chatterjee, ITV News.
The Metropolitan Police will apologise to the family of Nicole Smallman and Bieber Henry for the way the force responded to the sisters going missing. The women were murdered in Friant Country Park last June. The force said it agreed with the findings of the IOPC report that found the level of service provided over the weekend they went missing was below standard. 5 weeks after Sabina Nessa was found dead in a park, her family and friends gathered to celebrate what would have been her 29th birthday. The teacher was killed less than 5 minutes from her home. Her sister Jabina says more needs to be done to protect women. Natalia Jakara reports.
Sabina left a mark in many people's heart, and we as a family are very proud of her.
Sabina's family and friends gathered to celebrate her birthday, the first without her.
You just don't feel like this would happen to you, and the fact it has, it's just, there's not enough words to explain how much it's hurting inside. Like, the world is carrying on. Like, who would have thought it's 5 weeks on that she's passed away? But it just feels like we got the news yesterday.
Last month, primary school teacher Sabina was killed just moments after leaving her flat in Kidbrooke. She was meeting friends at a pub 5 minutes from her home, but she never arrived. Her death shocked everyone in the community, not least her family.
And I can just recall that time when we got the call, going to my mum's, everything just happening There's not enough words to describe how it feels.
Whilst police have charged 36-year-old Corrie Selamage with Sabina's murder, her death has fuelled calls for urgent action to improve women's safety on the streets of London.
Boris needs to do something. Sadiq Khan needs to implement something for us to feel safe to walk the streets alone. We shouldn't be going home extra early just because we don't feel safe. We shouldn't. We are independent. We live in a country where we can walk alone, but we can't because of what's happening. What's happened to my sister, what's happened in the past. We need to make sure that this does not happen again. And Boris, Sadiq Khan, they need to step up.
Now Sabina's memory will be kept alive by those who loved her.
We're 4 sisters, not 3. We'll always be 4 sisters, even though she's not here.
One, Sabina Nessa!
Marking the anniversary of her life by sharing memories of Sabina, the daughter, sister, friend and teacher. Those here setting a new birthday tradition. Natalia Horquera, ITV News.
Another injunction has been issued this evening against Insulate Britain protesters, this time covering the entire strategic road network. The group blocked roads and brought traffic to a standstill on the streets of the City of London and Canary Wharf earlier. This is the organisation's first demonstration since temporarily stopping activities. A plaque has been unveiled at King's Cross for a trailblazer of the railways. Wilston Samuel Jackson moved to London in 1952 and became Britain's first black train driver just 10 years earlier. Sam Holder reports.
Until Wilston Samuel Jackson, there were many who didn't think a black man was capable of driving a train. He started as a fireman, shoveling coal into the blazing firebox that powers steam trains. Despite racism and outrage from his colleagues, he refused to give up on his dream and passed the driver exam first time.
I can remember how happy we were as a family, jumping up and down when he came home. My father was very open about the struggles that he had, about the brushes with racism.
Here's the Flying Scot at around 90 miles an hour.
Wilston, who drove trains including the Flying Scotsman, died in 2018. In 1964, he was involved in a serious crash, breaking both legs. He was in hospital for a year. He had to learn how to walk again and then went straight back to driving trains. Today, after 10 years of campaigning, his impact has been celebrated in a blue plaque at King's Cross.
It's one of the proudest moments in my life is for my granddad to be recognised for what he'd done. It's absolutely amazing.
I don't think personally I would have been able to overcome what he overcome in order to do this. And again, like my brother said, it's one of the proudest days of my life.
Still, decades on, people from black and Asian backgrounds are underrepresented in the industry.
The railway system in Britain would not have survived had it not been for the Windrush generation, and he broke a very, very fixed ceiling. We're not as reflective of the communities we serve as we want to be or we should be. We're making progress there, but we need to speed that up.
In the crowd watching on, some of Wilston's great-grandchildren. One day they will learn how Britain's first black train driver laid tracks for generations to come. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Lovely. Now it's time for the weather. Here's Philippa Drew.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Good evening. Half term for many, and whilst it's been a fairly showery start to the week, the next few days look relatively promising with some drier conditions on the way. But worth noting as we head towards the weekend, something a little more unsettled making its return. Out there at the moment though, the daytime showers have now faded, and overnight tonight we'll be looking at dry and clear conditions. Underneath those clear skies, quite a cool night on the cards with lows of 5 or 6 degrees, and that could give rise to a little patchy mist or fog by dawn. But aside from that, tomorrow looks set to start on a fairly promising note. Dry, some lovely sunshine first thing. I think from mid-morning we'll start to see thickening cloud moving in from the west, and for a time that could produce a little patchy rain or drizzle. But even that starts to clear away through the afternoon, and we should see some brightness returning by the end of the day. Another mild one as well, similar to today, highs of 16 or 17 Celsius. And things remain pretty quiet overnight into Wednesday. So Wednesday itself looks set to be another fairly promising day. Lots of dry weather, plenty of sunny spells, little change on Thursday, but by the end of Friday, signs of thickening cloud and some rain on the way once more.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
And that's it from us. We're back on air tomorrow just after 6 o'clock with updates in Good Morning Britain. From all of us on the Late News team, good night.